Hello, I'm Mike Chigani, and this is Straight Talk. With me today is Mr. Yip Kin Yuen. Mr.
Hello.
Yip, you are a legislative councillor, and you're also representing the education sector in the Legislative Council. 1 million students in Hong Kong, right? We have 1 million students. That's a lot of students. They've been out of school since the Lunar New Year, I think, right? And I think university students have been out of university even during the protest period, right? That's a long time. Now, this morning, Carrie Lam, the chief executive, announced that schools may not open on April the 20th as originally planned. Now, April 20th is a month away, and even then she says unlikely the schools will open. How will that affect students?
So initially, the Education Bureau announced that the school will resume on March the 2nd.
That didn't happen.
March the 16th,
right?
And then April the 20th. So now I think it's very practical that it's not very likely that school can reopen on April the 20th. I think this morning, Carrie Lam did not make the formal announcement, but her this expression tells us very clearly that it's very unlikely. So we will have to wait for the new announcement. So when will be the next tentative day for resuming classes? I think the whole thing depends on the situation of the disease, how the epidemic develop in the future. And now I think with the persisting new cases, new confirmed cases coming in, and we are now also facing a large number of people coming back
from overseas.
Yes, from overseas.
Then, you cannot stop life indefinitely, right? I mean, I know it's a pandemic, it's a global pandemic, but the kids have been out of school for months now, right? So if they've been out of school for months now and they're doing some online learning, right? It is going to affect their education, and it's going to affect parents who may not have the means to look after children at home for so long.
Certainly.
And it affects children who don't see their friends. As a teaching professional, should we just say, like other countries, some other countries say, okay, schools should continue. Should we do that? People wear a face mask and then they go back to school.
I think, this is a very undesirable situation in Hong Kong now. Schools have stopped for such a long time. But I think, it's a matter of choice. We need to make a very difficult decision. So when we make a decision make a choice between people's health, well-being, and studying, what would you choose?
What would you choose? You're a teacher. What would you choose?
Obviously, I think students' health, student safety come first. So I think, it's not a good choice, but no, we have to accept it. The situation is that, and I think we obviously want to have the school reopen as soon as possible, but we have to fulfill two preconditions. One is that the situation is getting better, getting in control. That means according to the medical experts, I think we should listen to the medical experts.
But a lot of children, a lot of kids, young kids, secondary school students, university students, I see them going out to restaurants and to country parks and mingling and playing. There is no social distancing. So instead of mingling in school, they're mingling outside.
I think for the majority of the students, they are staying at home. So obviously we cannot control all the students, but at least most of the students are staying in a safe places.
Does that hurt them as children, as kids, secondary school students, primary school students? Does that hurt them psychologically? I mean,
Psychologically, and I think in every aspect. For example, we want students, young kids, to do exercise every day, to breathe fresh air, to go outside, to make friends, to have all sorts of social interaction.
They're missing part of their childhood.
Yeah, if we are talking about modern education emphasizes very much on people's interaction. We learn through interaction.
But that's gone.
Yes, that's gone. So they are now interacting through the computer screen.
How effective?
To say hello to friends or teachers, but that is a distance.
Well, how effective is online learning?
Oh, I think that varies very much. So it can be very effective. That can be very ineffective. In some cases, I think the students, if they want to escape from learning, teachers may not be able to.
You don't even know, right?
Right. But of course, I think teachers have to spend extra efforts in order to attract the students, and students have to pay extra attention. Staying in front of the computer for a long time is not a very enjoyable experience.
It's not an effective way as well. But okay.
And there are also other attraction inside.
Well, you're at
homes.
home. People, you can hear somebody talking or whatever. You're distracted from your studying, right?
Yeah. So it's also a test for whether the students can keep themselves in control.
Well, tell me this: if schools don't open on April the 20th, and Carrie Lam did say this morning that it's unlikely that schools will open on April the 20th, we're then heading into the summer months. Is it possible that if this epidemic eases by the summer, and that's a big if, right? If
it's a big if.
If it eases by the summertime, that school kids don't have summer break as they normally have, because they've had a long break already, so they go back to school in the summer.
The vacation might be shortened. Usually we have 1.5 months, usually for the summer vacation. But this year, I think we are expecting shorter vacation for most of the students. But April the 20th is very unlikely. So
you think it's very unlikely as well?
It's very unlikely for if we judge from the present situation, the development. But what will be the next tentative date?
Yeah, what is it? Nobody knows.
Usually, I think according to the past experience, the Education Bureau usually put 2 weeks interval, so it might be early May. So the tentative date for resuming classes might be
Aren't
early
we
May.
the toughest one? I mean, in the whole world, excluding Mainland China and Wuhan and Hubei province, aren't we the toughest in terms of shutting down schools?
No. If you look around the world, more and more countries are shutting down their schools. I think the most recent one I heard from the news is France. And before that, Austria and
yeah, but
other
France
places.
has got a huge epidemic, like in Italy.
Yes,
we don't have that.
Italy and Spain and I think in many places they shut down their schools. Even in Korea and other places, in Asian countries. Of course, there are still places that allow schools to operate, like Singapore and America. But I think in America,
Singapore, the schools are not
more
shut.
and more places in the United States are also shutting down their schools. And Macau is considering to resume school soon. So I think
Macau has been doing very well. They haven't had a case in quite a long time.
Yes.
They had one recently, but
so
that was imported.
If we can have similar situation in Hong Kong, if we do not have any new cases, or at least all the cases can be traced, then we might have to fulfill one of the conditions. The second conditions would be whether we are well prepared for resuming schools. Do we have enough amount of face masks.
Well, this is what I was going to ask you, whether we're going to have enough. Before I ask you that, when schools resume, eventually they will, what do you think is the damage that's been done to students that they've been away for so many months from school, education-wise, emotional-wise, and otherwise?
I talked to a reporter from America. He was asking me, because they are expecting similar things happening in the United States. So what is our experience? I think in Hong Kong, our experience is that the online teaching can be effective if some conditions is fulfilled. For example, if this family has computers, they can go online very easily. They can afford that, and the speed is okay. And the student are self-disciplined. So this can be very effective. But for other families, poorer families,
they don't have the computers.
They don't have the computer.
They live in tiny flats.
Or they have to share computers between different kids, or they cannot go online, or the online speed is very slow. So this will affect the effectiveness of.
All right.
So the poor, the rich, poor,
and the poor. Let me just pick it up after the break.
Yeah.
See you soon. Don't go away. Thanks for staying with us. This is Straight Talk. With me is Mr. Yip Kin Yuen. Mr. Yip Kin Yuen, you are a legislative councillor. You represent the education sector. Now, Mr. Yip, in addition to Hong Kong schools, when they reopen, nobody knows. It's indefinite. We are having a huge number of foreign students, Hong Kong students who study abroad in the UK and the US. They're flooding back to Hong Kong.
Yes.
Because there's going to be some kind of a new restriction that if they return, I think it's after Thursday, right? Then they have to undergo a 14-day a quarantine, right? So everybody's rushing back in the next 2 days, right? Planes are overloaded. The students are cutting short their studies, and they're returning. I mean, UK schools are not closing, but the students from Hong Kong are coming back. They choose to come back. What happens to them?
Oh,
their
I think
education
they're
has
rushing
been
back.
cut short.
They're rushing back. Of course, on one hand, Hong Kong is implementing the measures of quarantine, but on the other hand, I think it's due to the situation in UK, in America, or in continental Europe. The situation is getting worse. So many students are worrying, and I received some cases.
Students have been asking you to help them out.
Yeah,
right?
and also their parents. I think their parents are also very nervous about that. So they are trying to seek more information, and then seek air tickets.
Apparently, air tickets are all sold out, right?
Yes.
I heard that some parents are paying
expensive.
$100,000 for a first-class ticket to get their kids back, right?
In some cases, yes. And
those must be very rich parents.
And there are some not so poor, not so well-off students have to, stay in the country. For example, I received a case from Paris. The student cannot afford an expensive ticket, so she has to buy a ticket on a later date. So it becomes a very difficult situation.
Well, I think
because
after is it Thursday?
She
then
has
there'll
to
be
stay there for almost a week by herself. So
But when she comes back, she'll have to undergo a 14-day quarantine, right?
Yes.
But it's home quarantine, so it's not that bad a deal.
You're right. So it's easier, but I think it's very important for they to be very self-disciplined, to observe all the rules, to do this home quarantine at home, or else I think they might infect their family members, and also the community, and this can be
But should they stay? I mean, they went overseas to study, and then when there is You know, I know a lot of Hong Kong people, when we in Hong Kong were getting really worried about this coronavirus, a lot of Hong Kong people left to go to the West, right? And now that it's there, they're coming back to Hong Kong, right? They're going back and forth. So the students who chose to go to the US or the UK, should they just stay there? If they take precautions, social distancing, put on a face mask, it's no different from Hong Kong, right?
I think they have to make a decision, a very difficult situation, decision to make. I myself cannot advise them because I don't know the situation in their localities. So it might, they might have to all kinds of difficult situation might happen. The supermarket may be out of stock.
But that happened over here. We survived.
We have got through that. But they are going to happen, and they are by themselves. So I think they have to make a decision whether to come back or not. If they want to come back, they should make their decision as soon as possible.
But if they want to come back, then they're missing out on the rest of the school term.
You're right.
They cannot have online learning here because they're studying abroad, right? How does that affect them and their studies?
I think it depends on different situations. I heard that in some schools in UK, they have to close for some time because they have confirmed cases in the schools. So in that case, the student even remaining in UK, they have to go online for their study. But in other cases, if they choose to come back to Hong Kong and the schools still operate, and they will miss some of the school days, and it might be a problem whether they can graduate from that school.
Exactly, this is what I was thinking about. And then if they go back, now this is difficult. When it's all over, then they return back to the UK or to the US. Will they face peer pressure from their school friends? They say, oh, the first sign of trouble, you ran away, now you're back. Will they face that kind of perhaps discrimination or peer pressure?
I'm not sure, but I think the school should help the students to understand each other. We are having a very difficult situation. It's all unprecedented. And I think the school teachers should help the students to understand each other's situation, and not to blame each other. This is what school education should be meant for. So I hope that kind of situation won't happen, but it can. Students have different ideas about each other's.
Now, we're talking about students, and as you remember, during the protests, the anti-extradition, anti-government protests, a lot of students were arrested.
Oh, yes.
Over 7,000 people were arrested. The vast majority of them were students, right? They went through that psychological situation. Many of them are out on bail now. They've not yet been charged, but they're out on bail. And then they're hit with this coronavirus and the schools are shut, right? That is a double whammy, two things hitting young people, hitting them one after the other within the space of a few months. Can they recover from this?
I hope so, but I think we can understand the stress they are undergoing.
They're stressing of not being able to go to school, the stress of worrying about whether they're going to be charged, whether they're going to go to jail.
And they need support from their friends, their family members, and the teachers. Yes, exactly. So the social support system might not work in a normal way. So when they are seeking help and when they want to express themselves, I think the problem is much bigger than the usual time.
Have we lost?
So we have to reach out more actively for
But
teachers,
we're not
for
reaching
parents.
out to them. When the students, when the young people go out to anything, they're stopped and searched by the police, and then some of them are arrested.
And now they are not supposed to go out at all. So I think, well, we need teachers, we need social workers, we need parents who can approach the students through telephone or whatever. And so I think, well, we need to talk to each other. They very much need this kind of support.
Have we lost?
But I think the biggest problem is peer support. For youngsters, it's very important to talk to their peers, but it would be quite difficult. Fortunately, we have all the WhatsApps or Facebook, but
they can keep in touch that way.
They can keep in touch, but I think it's important to get face to face normally.
Have we lost a generation of young people?
I hope not. So
We went through 7-8 months of protest, then we hit with this. Now we've been hit with this for 2 months now. You're talking close to a year where young people have gone through a lot of things.
So we need to recover. I think, well, if we are trying to recover, there are two things for the epidemic. I think we need the summer coming. I hope that the epidemic can go. But for the protest,
you think they'll come back after when this epidemic goes away? Hopefully it does. You think those young kids will come back and protest again?
It might. The social conflicts had not been solved. So I think it's very important for the government to rethink about what they are doing. They have been doing, and I think they should take a new approach. If they want to get back, all the people, they are actually suffering from lack of support from the public. So they should rethink. So they should really consider the appeal by the people, what they are asking for. So the government should do something to, we have been talking about independent investigation, all these things. So the government
Carrie Lam
should
says
make
now is
use
not the time to talk about that because she's dealing with this health crisis.
But they are doing other things as well. They are taking RTHK or whatever. So actually I think, well, the whole thing has not been stopped. So this is actually a good opportunity for, if we can unite to fight the virus.
It's the best time for the society to unite, right? This health crisis, we should all unite.
So if they are talking about that, they should do something, not to do all the political struggle to take other people. So I think that is something they should do.
Let's hope that happens. I've got to end the show. See you next time. Good evening.